Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and here I am in my garage with my latest acquisition. I know I said I wasn't going to buy anything more, but I was lying. I intend to buy lots more and continue at this rate until I drop, and I hope I drop in a place just like this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to Florida, I'm not going any place. This is what I really love. So, alright, started out with a rant. But I got the South Bend safely at home. Remember, I have two of these now, and this is from Bushnell, Illinois, that I bid on. And remember, that was not a public auction. It was just, I don't know if they advertised it at all, but I was the only bidder. I rescued it again from the scrapyard. It would have been gone because a superintendent wouldn't value this any more than he would an old computer printer or typewriter or something. You know, it's just something they got to get rid of. So, and he wouldn't have known what it was. So, I'm glad to have it. But what I'm going to do in this video, and be sure and watch the first part. This is a multi-part series. But today I'm going to attempt to go through this with you and just try to evaluate it, determine what all needs to be repaired, what needs to be redone. This will not be a total restoration. I may paint it, but at the very least I will clean it and repair it and bring it back into its original functionality, and there seems to be several issues with it. So let's begin, and be sure and watch all of the videos in this series if you're interested in shapers. Now this is a very small 7-inch shaper, but a lot of this would apply and be similar to even larger shapers, although some of those are hydraulic. This is strictly what they call a column type or a crank type. There's no hydraulics. So let's begin. First of all, yesterday I took it off of the original stand, which I am going to paint that because the paint really is shot. It's just falling off. So I'm going to do that, but I'll do my typical Peterson superficial job on that. But I have moved it, at least temporarily, onto the Horror Freight cart. And I noticed that the capacity of this thing is 300 pounds, so I'm right at that. It does seem a little wiggly, but this will allow me to move it around for photography purposes and into the light and for access and all of that. So I can move it quickly, and the wheels lock, but not real well. You know, this is a piece of, you know what, but I think it's going to serve for this purpose. And then after the paint has dried, I will move it back onto this. I think I'll start by going through the drawers. There's not a whole lot of value in the drawers, but let me show you what did come with it. And I've already thrown a few things away when I was down in Bushnell, but in the top drawer is apparently an original manual for this model, but for some reason there's a man's name on there and it is totally oil soaked. I've already attempted to put paper between the pages to try to soak up the oil. It's still quite readable, but as I showed you, I have two more copies of this in the house, so I'm not too worried about that. And in the top drawer here, you know, there's some old screwdriver, there's a chunk of iron, and I had to laugh at this. This looks like a student project. You know, in junior highs they often made a weenie fork. Well, I don't know why it's in there, but kids would stash things all around the shop. And so here's a parallel. This is the lamp, and that is all that is left of it. I'll show you where that goes on the machine. And I don't really care because the lamp on my other one is about useless. You know, it won't stay in position, but so that was probably destroyed many years ago. In the second drawer are some tools, but not what I would have hoped for. There's an old V-belt, and there's the only tool holder, and that's of course like a boring bar in there for making keys and keyways and so on. I was sorry to find that they did not include one of these. It must have been long gone. This is off my other shaper, but that's the regular SHAPER tool holder. Wire brush, there's some bits, cutting bits, some parallels. This, I'm glad to have, that's the wrench that will allow us to adjust the length of the stroke. C-clamp, how could you possibly mangle one that bad? So some of this is going in, most of this is going in the garbage. I don't know why, but there's two of these, and that's the wrench that would fit that type of tool holder. And really nothing else on that one. There was nothing in the bottom. There's still sawdust in this because I think this came from a general shop where they probably had woodworking machinery along with the metalworking. And what I intend to do before I start that video is to begin to... Did you see that paint crumble off? So it won't take too much to scrape it. I'm not going to sandblast or anything crazy like that, but give it a coat of primer and brush on some Rust-Oleum navy gray or something of that nature. I wish I had some of the genuine South Bend paint, which I do not. Now also note that this machine has been painted at some time, and that is the South Bend colors, quite a different. You know, there's a million shades of gray. In the following video, I will attempt to compare these two shapers. Remember that this one is 5 or more years newer than the other one, even though this one looks far better, at least cosmetically, and I think it is condition-wise too, now that I start to look at this machine. And by the way, while I'm still looking at the other one, this is the original type of light, and they just had no rigidity at all. You know, they just flopped around, bordering on the worthless. I do like that Banggood light that I have with a magnetic base, LED, and you can't burn yourself on it either. But the lights fasten on to this collar right here. And there is one of those on this one. Also, I'm going to point right now, several people said, hey, I love those yellow handles on there. I detest them. When I saw that down in Bushnell, I thought that's the first thing I'm going to get rid of. And here's my scenario on that. This is what it should look like. But I am not kidding you when I say that the knobs always fell off of any machine. Well, even these are loose, see? And the kids would quickly discover that, and they'd throw them or steal them, or you'd find them in the hallway. So, and they wouldn't have had Loctite, but probably years ago. But the first thing I always did with any machine was put Loctite on these, and then the kids couldn't get them off. And then at that point, they didn't even realize that they just screwed off. And now that's another one of my rants, so let's get back to the business here, and I'll try not to compare it to that other one, but just let's talk about what I need to do to this and what I do and do not like about it and what appears to be substandard. Of course, the very first thing I had to do down in Bushnell was to take the motor assembly off, and so it's still sitting over there with sawdust on it. I did have to use a wire clippers and take the belts off, and there were just a few screws, so I'm not going to discuss that at all today. There doesn't appear to be anything wrong with it. I haven't tried the motor. I'm assuming it works. I'm sure it works. They were bulletproof. So looking over at this side, first of all, this is a 2-wire system. There's no ground, so that dates it as well. I think 1959 is about the time they started putting in grounded plugs on everything. So that's why I cut the wire here, because it has to be replaced. I didn't want to take the time to make the disconnection, but because that all needs to be replaced, although the cord is not cracked. It's in semi-good condition, but there's no cover on here, and you know, just things go to pot if you don't have a teacher that is really on it and is willing to work a lot extra, because it was no easy job to be a shop teacher, because there was constant repairs And instead, after school, you had to go to a union meeting or a faculty meeting or to the prom or something, you know, when you really needed to be doing stuff like this. This machine was made approximately in the late 50s or early 60s. Craig told me that school was built in about 56. And if they put new equipment in there at that time, then that's probably the date of this. I'll find out. I'm going to see him in a couple of days. I'll find out again exactly what date they built the school. But again, the shop class, whatever it was, was discontinued some time ago. I'm not sure just how long ago, but I did ask one of the janitors how long this had been in storage, and he said he's been there 26 years and it had been there when he started. So it's been in storage a long time, but looking at it from the wear and different things I see wrong with it, it did receive 30 or 35 years of use, and there is wear on it. I thought possibly it would be in a little better shape than this, because in general these machines didn't get that much use, but apparently they did not have a milling machine, so any kind of flat metal removal was done on this. Well, there hadn't been a drop of oil applied since the day they moved this, so the first thing I did was to squirt penetrating oil on the ways on every moving surface, because I did have to move a few things in order to load it, and I didn't want to do that in the dry condition, but it's going to get a lot better job here, you know, in the future. The only thing I did clean up a bit is this cover plate, so that's the color that it should be, approximately anyway. So taking this off, well, there. Now remember that there is oil in this one. This has an oil pump and an automatic oiler. The other one does not. So there's a quart or more of oil in there. You can't see, but I'm going to draw a sample here in just a minute, and I'm sure it's pretty nasty. But here's the first issue that I see with it. We got some damage or wear or something in here. Now watch as I turn the hand wheel on the other side. Can you see all the play and slop? So that's probably the very first thing that I have to deal with. Probably even before I clean it up. I'm not sure what order I'll do in it, but I don't know if it's just that bronze bearing. But remember, I did do a repair job on my other one. There is a video of that goes some time back. Be sure and watch those videos of the other one when I brought that home. Alright, using my wife's turkey baster, I'll see if I'm able to draw a sample. Oh yeah. Looks like Caro syrup. So that will have to be drained, flushed, and cleaned. But I knew that. Remember, this has been sitting for a long time, and we don't know if the teacher ever changed it. That may be original oil, who knows. And if anybody knows what kind of oil to use, I'll tell you what it says here. And South Bend always pulled this. They gave you a Saybolt number. So they said use Saybolt viscosity approximately 150 to 240 seconds at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that means nothing to me, even though I Googled that and looked up some conversions, and it still made absolutely no sense. So this sump holds, they said, about a quart, and you determine that by opening this plug, and you add oil until a little oil runs out. That's very similar to the way oil was checked on older tractors. The other side, I'll show you in a minute, is where the drain plug is, and this little access hole here allows you to put a screwdriver in there and adjust the oil pump for flow. It says South Bend 7-inch shaper here, but it's absolutely filthy. And there's just a little light. There's not a whole lot of rust, but I did zero in on this, and there's some pitting there. Right there, I don't know if you can see it. I don't know why these modern things flash like that. I don't like it. I probably will take all of this apart to clean it and lubricate it. I was so glad there was a vise included, because you may remember there was no vise on the other ones, and my friend Roger, the shop teacher from California, sent me the correct vise. But it's kind of surprising the vise wasn't taken off by someone and used on a drill press, or just plain walked off after all those years. But apparently no one had any interest. But the clapper box seems just fine, although it might be a little loose. No, it's not bad. And I'm glad that the tool post was in there, although it was in backwards, so somebody had fiddled with it just a little bit. And all of the dials will need a good cleaning. They're hard to read and there's light rust on them, as are all of the cranks. And that's very tight, and I don't want to force it, and I'd rather take it apart and lubricate it before I do any kind of damage. This is the belt that was on there, totally frayed and shot. You know, it really surprises me sometimes that you'll see that a teacher did not replace simple things anyway. This would have been so easy. You could have got that at any hardware store at that time for $1 probably. And so I got over 500 V-belts in stock. I bought all of them from a hardware store. You can tell how old that is at $2.99. But I need a 28-incher. I had 10 29s, and I had about 30 30-inchers, and I had a bunch of 27s, but naturally, so I got to buy one. Not a problem, really. But in defense of that shop teacher that I just criticized, often these teachers were running around from room to room. That, you know, he might have had to run over and teach history the next hour, or a study hall or something like that, and then right after school maybe he had to coach track or something. So you know, look at the slop in that, see? So sometimes they didn't have time to do that, but quite often they didn't have the will, or maybe the talent. I don't know, but I saw some shops over my career that were just model shops, absolutely perfect, and others that were a joke, and it all depended on the teacher. So on this side you can see that this is the drain plug for the oil sump, and that'll be a messy one when I go to drain it. The base on these more modern ones is quite flared out here and wider on the front rather than just a straight base like the older models. I'm not sure just when they made the model change. I'll talk about model numbers and all of that in the next video. This feed rod appears to be bent. I believe that it should be perfectly straight, so I'll address that or deal with that at a later time. But I am seeing more and more things that are wrong with this, so it's not a machine, as I said, that just sat there idle and never got used. Often these machines were used by maybe an advanced student without much supervision, like, you know, get out the book and read it and see what you can do with it, if he was busy with other things. So that happened in shops as well. On the feed slide here, I see that we have an empty screw hole. Now, I believe, according to the other one anyway, that should have been a Gibbs screw, and then this one would have been the hole where there was a knurled knob so you could lock it. Lock the gib, prevent this from moving during a cut. I decided to take the vise off while I was at it so we see what it looks like underneath. There's just one bolt that holds it on. Oh, that's nice. I wish the whole thing looked like that. So there's no hidden damage, I don't think. Looks like there's a little bit of galling around there, but it's all right. You can see that there's sawdust just about every place, so it'll require a good cleaning. Well, that almost wraps up this preliminary video trying to evaluate it and just see what the condition is and what has to be done. So what I have decided, if this video doesn't get a good number of views, I probably won't film too many more videos of this so-called restoration. I'll assume people aren't interested, but if there is a good viewership, I'd like to show some of that. Although, you know, it takes so long to do something like that, I don't want a 3-hour video of me scraping paint or something of that nature. Nobody wants to see that any more than I want to do it. So, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Remember to watch the next one where I actually do compare these two machines, the old with the new. Although I'm sitting here between friends, I'm broken-hearted. Yesterday my 3 hit-and-miss engines left for New York for good, and I immediately had seller's remorse before the truck got down to the end of the street. I might have to watch for more of them. They're semi-plentiful here in Illinois. But now I'm broke. You know, many people think that I'm just copycatting A-Bomb 79. Adam's a friend of mine, by the way. Met him many times. But, you know, you have to strike while the iron's hot when you find something like this, and it's just a total coincidence that I got it about the time of Adam's, and there seems to be quite a bit of interest in these as far as people watching it, who wants to own one. And hardly anybody could buy one like Adam has, because it's just a monster. You need a lot of room, you need someone to move it, probably a rigger, and it's going to be 3-phase and might be worn out. There's just a lot of reasons, but you can usually buy them for about scrap iron. They're usually worth a lot less than this, because this is one that you can get in the basement or in your small garage and you can wrestle it around, as I did myself in that last video. But that's why I'm doing this, and why I grabbed this and rescued it from the scrap man. Also, most of you know that I have produced and I sell video courses on the South Bend lathe, Atlas lathe, and so on. Most people know that. But I had thoughts of possibly producing a video series, probably about 30 chapters, on how to run a South Bend lathe. But I'm going to see how much interest there might be in that, because I think that there's not a lot of interest in shapers. There aren't that many around. You know, people like milling machines. You know, the Bridgeport mill killed these. Thank goodness. All right. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now.